behind the scenes.
Let's go now to Kevin Rudd, live from the caucus room.
G'day. This way, guys. Well, thank you for gathering. My fellow Australians, my fellow members of the Australian Parliamentary Labor Party. Today I'm announcing that I will be a candidate for the position of Leader of the Parliamentary Labor Party. I'm advised that the Chair of the Parliamentary Labor Party has been collecting a petition of members, about a third in number, requesting that a meeting of the party be held to resolve the question of the party's leadership. Of course, Julia's statement of half an hour or so ago removes the need for such a petition. The truth is, many MPs have requested me for a long time to contest the leadership of the party because of the parlous circumstances we now face. And less politely perhaps, various ministers have been free and frank in their public advice to me as to the desirability of contesting the leadership in recent days. For the nation's sake, I believe it's time for this matter to be resolved. The second but more important reason for contesting the leadership is the tens and thousands of ordinary Australians, members of the Australian public, who have been asking me to do this for a very long time. And it's your voices, the voices of the Australian people, it's those voices that have had a huge effect on me, more so than most of the voices I happen to hear around the corridors of this building. What literally thousands of Australians have said to me over the last year or so is that they are genuinely fearful of what Mr Abbott could do to them if he's elected, let alone elected with a massive majority, including a majority in the Senate, which he is currently on track to do. Last time Mr Abbott's party had absolute power, they brought in work choices. People are afraid, they are very afraid, that they'll try to do it again. Under a different name, of course, but no one forgets work choices. Australian families are afraid of what Mr Abbott could do to penalty rates and overtime, what could happen to their jobs, what he could do to pensions, and what he could do to the environment. And the truth is, if we're all being perfectly honest about it right now, is that we're on course for a catastrophic defeat, unless there is change. And so today I'm saying to you, the people of Australia, I'm seeking to respond to your call that I've heard from so many of you to do what I can to prevent Mr Abbott from becoming Prime Minister. There is a third reason for my contesting the leadership as well. I believe that all Australians, whatever their politics, want a real choice at this election. A real choice. At present, if you talk to them long and hard, they don't feel as if they've got one. And they are frustrated that we are denying them one. They are angry we are leaving them with little choice at all other than to vote for Mr Abbott. Australians want a real policy debate on our vision for the country's future and Mr Abbott's vision for the future of our economy and jobs, on national security, on education, on health, on climate change, and how we would make these competing visions work. This has now become urgent for the future of the economy in particular. I believe that what the nation needs now is strong, proven, national economic leadership to deal with the formidable new challenge Australia now faces with the end of the decade-long China resources boom and its impact on Australian jobs and living standards into the future. Given that our economic relationship with China alone now accounts for nearly 10% of the total size of our economy. This is a massive new challenge. Diversification and productivity are no longer important for Australia. They are essential for Australia if we are to protect our jobs and maintain our living standards. Mr Abbott's alternative economic policy is to copy the British Conservatives, launch a national slash and burn austerity drive and drive the economy into recession as happened in Britain. A double dip and almost a triple dip recession in the United Kingdom. I therefore believe with all my heart that I owe it to my country to offer the Australian people a viable alternative for them to choose the future they want for themselves, their jobs and their families, because these big economic questions will affect us all, and sooner than we think. It is time for proven national economic leadership.
Mr. Rudd,
These are the three core reasons why I have changed my position on the leadership. The requests that I've received from my colleagues, my belief that the Australian people deserve a competitive choice at the next election, and my fear that if we don't offer it, Mr Abbott will win the biggest landslide since Federation, unleash an assault on the people who rely upon us, the Australian Labor Party, and those of us in the Australian Labor government to protect them. I do not seek to fudge the fact that I've changed my position. I've simply given you the reasons today that I have done so. I accept full responsibility for my previous statements on the leadership, and I'll leave it to you, the good people of Australia, to judge whether I've made the right call. If I win this ballot, every effort I have in my being will be dedicated to uniting the Australian Labor Party. No retributions, no paybacks, none of that stuff. It's pointless. It's old politics. The values which drive our movement are those things which should unite us. For those ministerial colleagues and friends who choose to serve and who want to serve, my general principle will be to embrace them serving. For those who believe they cannot serve, I wish them well, thank them for their service, and welcome the opportunity also to renew the government. If I lose, of course, I would announce that I would not contest the next election, and I thank Julia for making the same commitment. Friends, my fellow Australians, I love this country of ours, and I'm doing what I honestly believe to be in the best interests of Australia. Now, my friends in the media, you've heard me say this a million times, I have an hour and 40 minutes to speak to a number of friends in the Parliamentary Labor Party about what will happen here in this. None of that stuff. It's pointless. It's old politics. The values which drive our movement are those things which should unite us. For those ministerial colleagues and friends who choose to serve and who want to serve, my general principle will be to embrace them serving. For those who believe they cannot serve, I wish them well, thank them for their service, and welcome the opportunity also to renew the government. If I lose, of course, I would announce that I would not contest the next election, and I thank Julia for making the same commitment. Friends, my fellow Australians, I love this country of ours, and I'm doing what I honestly believe to be in the best interests of Australia. Now, my friends in the media, you've heard me say this a million times, I have an hour and 40 minutes to speak to a number of friends in the Parliamentary Labor Party about what will happen here in this room at 7 p.m. So I've got a zip. Thank you.
Can you win, Mr Rudd? Can you win? So, Kevin Rudd, not taking questions. That main one in particular, can you win? Do you have the numbers? The crush around the former PM and his daughter by his side there as they leave the Labor caucus room where fellow MPs and senators will be returning in an hour and 40 minutes to decide whether it is to be a return to Kevin Rudd or sticking with Julia Gillard. Now, a couple of key points from Kevin Rudd there in those remarks. He will take up that condition. If he loses this ballot tonight, he will leave politics at the election, as Julia Gillard has committed to as well, to try and put an end to this. Kevin Rudd also stressing there that he is about unity on the back of this. If he wins tonight, he will keep any ministers who want to stay on the front bench. He will embrace them. And those who feel they cannot serve, he will thank them for their service. Look, he did not get into any of the policy areas that he might confront should he win the leadership on boats, on the carbon price, on the Gonski school funding reforms, on any of these. He was not willing to get into that in his remarks there, really pitching his return to the leadership as all about winning the election, stopping Tony Abbott from winning, stopping Tony Abbott from having a massive majority and control of the Senate, raising that scare campaign about work choices once again, even though Tony Abbott's not offering a policy that really looks much like work choices at all, it must be said, but using that as the weapon here to argue why they should return to him to save seats and perhaps even hold on to government at the election. Nor did he say, Kieran, whether he would do anything about the election date itself, shifted earlier or later. At the moment, September 14. No indication on that front. presumably we'll hear more should he win tonight, as the expectation is that he may well do.
And as you say, David, a very clear message to the caucus colleagues that he is the viable alternative, and that's what the argument was. He used that phrase himself, the viable alternative, and that was the reason why, one of the reasons why he's changed his position. He says, I'm not going to fudge it. I've changed my position. I've been, and he says, I've been approached by many MPs, but more importantly, Rudd saying he's the man of the people, and saying that tens of thousands of Australians have approached him to make another bid for the leadership. And to be honest, David, it was another reminder of what Rudd has done well, not just in the last year, but from the outset, and that is communicating to the electorate. He hasn't always been good. In fact, he's been appalling at communicating to his colleagues, but always to the electorate he's done quite well, hence his ongoing lingering popularity in the polls.
Peter Van Onselen, just on that pitch there from Kevin Rudd, it's about the people. They're the ones who are demanding I break that commitment, and you can judge me, he says, on whether it's the right call, but he is putting his hand up. What did you make? Was that the right pitch?